So out of that trauma, then we begin to blame ourselves. There's this form of blame that we place on ourselves. Well, maybe if I did this or, did that, the outcome would have been differently. And then from blame, we move to being ashamed that, oh my gosh, why am I like this? Why did it happen? Let's talk about that. Hey, y'all. Hey, it's your girl, KiKi, and it's Friday. Y'all, I am super excited to be here tonight. We have so much to talk about, but let me introduce our special guest of the night. Her name is Johnna, okay? And she hails us from North Carolina. She has a communications background and a marketing background. She's a former makeup artist as well as a functional fitness trainer. Yeah, show them how you do it. And she's a life coach, okay? Johnna, thank you so much for being here. Her Instagram page is Soul Searching and Squats. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, KiKi's concoction of the night is toxic relief. That's what we're calling it. Y'all, we're getting ready to get this toxic behavior all away from us, okay? That's what tonight is all about. So, toxic relief. Cheers, Johnna.
Cheers.
All right. All right. Mm. Thank you so much for being willing to be on Damn Shame Podcast. But look, before we get into the reason of why you're here and all of that and the main event, I just want to go through the culture, what's going on in the culture. Did you all know that March is Women's History Month? Okay, so I've been listening to some girl power music to commemorate this Women's History Month. So drop in those comments some songs that, exemplify or, you identify with as being girl power. I can name a few. Shaka Khan's I'm every woman. It's all in me. I love it. I love it. I love it. Destiny's Child, independent, all the women. What is it? All the women. You can tell karaoke is not. In the shower, I sound damn good, okay?
You
Beyonce,
sound damn good now.
thank you. Beyonce's Who Runs the World? Girls. Who Run the World? Girls. Um, Alicia Keys. This girl is on fire. That's right. That's right. Johnna and KiKi, we are on fire tonight. So thank y'all for tuning in, dropping those comments, the song that resonates with you for Women's History Month. There's so many out there, and we want to celebrate us because listen, we carry all of the power. Contrary to what some may think, I like to say we carry the power. So shout out to the Women's History Month. Another exciting thing that's going on in the culture, Coming to America 2 was released today on Amazon Prime. I cannot wait to see it. It's a lot of buzz around it. I know that it's going to be, I'm hoping that it's going to be just as good and carry the legacy on that Coming to America 1 did. So I'm excited about it. Janet Jackson has just, I guess, solidified her documentary that will be dropping around her time frame of when her first album was released back in 1982. So in 2002, she'll have a 2-night documentary that will be featured on Lifetime and A&E. You know what? Earlier today, I heard my goddaughter, who is 8 years old, singing. Producer lady, what was that song she was singing? And you said that was your
As your principal. Oh, oh.
And so She was singing Pleasure Principle at 8. But that's what good music is about. You know, the legacy continues to carry on. And I don't know if you all have seen on social media, but there are a lot of people doing the Janet Jackson challenges. So I'm sure that is to commemorate and get ready for this documentary that's going to really be released. I cannot wait to see it because I saw Janet Jackson in concert one time. Now, some might argue that she can't sing and, you know, her vocals aren't up to par, but the performance, oh my gosh, it was like something I'd never seen in my entire life. She puts her all in everything she does, so I'm excited about it. How about this? Megan Thee Stallion, Beyonce, speaking of girl power, Taraji P. Henson, and a few others are helping Texas to recover from that bad storm. So shout out to Girl Power for stepping up. These celebrities are donating their dollars to make sure that Texas recovers. I'm so excited about that. This weekend is NBA All-Star Weekend. Listen, back in the day, honey, you couldn't keep us away from all of those sexy men. But it's in Atlanta, and the mayor said, do not come. It's COVID. So I saw something said, you know, Atlanta must have some special immunity to the COVID virus because you see them all out in the clubs, in the lounges. You know, half of them had masks and others don't. I'm like, why are their numbers not as high as some other areas? I don't know, but it's going down. NBA All-Star this weekend. So, damn Seamus, get in those comments. Let me know how you feel about the culture and what we have going on. And while you're doing that, Johnna, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Listen, I had stumbled across your page and I saw you and another lady, and y'all were just talking. And I was like, they're talking about the same shit that I normally talk about with me and my girlfriends. And you, every time that you go live on your page, you just deposit so much positivity that just resonates. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to have you on Damn Shame Podcast. So I'm honored that you're here.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. That means a lot. And yeah, so I saw you whenever you mentioned that you had seen me and my friend talking, and I was like, I'm the friend that she saw. And I got like super excited. I fangirled out and I was like, that's me. And so, yeah, like it's really cool that I'm here now. So thank you so much for being so hospitable and like welcoming me on.
Absolutely. So listen, awareness and confidence is the essence of truly what Damn Shame podcast is about. Week after week, we hope to raise awareness and build confidence at the same time. So quite frankly, on any given day, it's a struggle for me. You know, I'm going to be quite honest. It's a struggle for me. Sometimes I'm not as confident. Sometimes there is this lack of struggle that I have. And so I'm committed tonight to exploring, and I hope the Damn Shamers are committed as well, to exploring our true authentic self. How are we showing up? It's not an easy process. It's not an easy process. But with having you here as a life coach, as someone who is experienced, hopefully you can give us the tools. I said, Johnna's about to be my new best friend and she doesn't even know it.
Come on.
But help us to navigate through those challenges because it's a lot. It's a lot to process. It's quite frankly heavy to process. So, you know, let's start with what was the inspiration behind soul searching in squat?
So I think the inspiration behind this for me personally was that I spent so many years trying to figure it out, right? Trying to figure out like how to accept myself, how to, you know, have some sense of like meaning and purpose and direction. And when I finally started to figure that out, I was like, holy shit, why don't more people know this? Like, I wanted to tell everybody. And I started off with makeup because my initial thought, because this was like over a decade of like trial and error, right? Trying to like figure this out. And so with makeup is where I started because we see that and we're like, oh, wow, let me help women feel beautiful, right? Let me help people feel beautiful. And then when I got into that, I realized, and I shared this earlier with you, that like there's a lot of really beautiful, sad people. And it's about so much more than just what we see on the outside. So I stopped doing that. And then I found fitness. And I did that for um, like full time for about like 5 or 6 years. And I wanted to do that because when I would be in that space, it was something like I had never known. I never played sports. And so the changes that I felt within myself, that I witnessed within those who were also like working out with me, the acceptance that that space provided for women to be loud, to take up space, was not only something that was, accepted, but it was actually celebrated. And I had never seen that before. And so I wanted to, spread the word to the masses, right? And so that's why I became a coach. And it was from there that after so many years, I became very present to the fact that, I want to do a little bit more. Like, yes, we can go to the gym, we can work out, we can do all these things, but it's really about what's in here and what's in here. And you have to be at a certain awareness already before you will ever step foot through the doors of a gym. And so I wanted to have a greater impact. And that is why I decided to start Soul Searching Squats and like what I'm doing. And that is why I'm here today talking to you.
I love it. I love it. What resonates with me is that you say there are a lot of beautiful broken people. And I can relate because in some areas I have been broken from time to time. And so we'll begin to navigate a little deeper in that discussion later in the show. But how does one stop believing and living in their own lies, the lies that we tell us, because we make up things about ourselves. How do
Mm-hmm.
we stop that? How do we counter that?
So you said it in the intro and like the essence of what, damn shame is all about. Awareness is the first step because these lies that we tell ourselves, a lot of times we aren't even conscious of. 95% of brain function happens on an unconscious level. And so we're just going through the day. That's why, you hear the phrases like can't teach an old dog new tricks or like, old habits are hard to break, like those kinds of things, because that has been, the narrative that we've been told, right? And so that's been like what we've adopted to believe that, oh, well, this just is the way it is. And on a biological level, our bodies are built to survive. And so wherever we can make a shortcut, we're going to do it. And so if there's something that has been working for you in the past that served you, whether to, keep you safe mentally, physically, emotionally, whether or not that's serving you now, that's what your body's going to default to because that's what it knows is going to work. Even if it's not ideal, even if it's not the best of circumstances, even if where you are now is in a place that, that's not the optimal thing. And I can relate this to give you a quick example to like whenever we were children and we didn't really have much of an option if, something was happening in our family dynamic and we would shut down. We would get quiet, like, we wouldn't want to cause a scene. We would shrink ourselves because we didn't know, and I'm speaking from like me personally, I didn't know how my like I didn't know what kind of response I was going to get. And
Mhm.
so in order to like self-protect my own feelings, the way that I knew what to do is just like, okay, well, I'm just going to detach and I'm going to step away and I'm going to like shrink myself and I'm not going to make a lot of noise because I'm not sure what's happening. And so that served me then, right? Like that helped me to, get
Oh,
through. Do what?
it help you to cope.
Exactly. It helped me to cope. And so now, fast forward to, I've worked through a lot of it, but fast forward to whenever I'm in adulthood and something happens, I don't want to talk about it. I want to go to my room. I want to like shrink to myself. In the presence of women, especially, I found, and this is what I discovered whenever I was working as a coach in the fitness capacity, which I still do some, but when I was working full time in that capacity, is that whenever there is another female, and if I'm picking up that she feels like threatened or anything like that, I shrink myself. I don't talk, I get quiet, I'm very much catering to her. And it took someone else pointing that out. And so this is like bringing it back to answer your question. We don't know, like a lot of the time, like we don't know. And so awareness is the first step. And if you are feeling that, and sometimes even if you're not feeling that something is missing because we don't know what we don't know, it's a matter of just taking a step back and looking at your life and, are you where you want to be? And if not, then what are the things that are happening on the day to day, or what are the things that are happening on a consistent basis that are keeping you where you are and preventing you from, where you want to be?
Yeah, yeah. That is something that, resonates very near and dear to me. I mean, just as I can think of, personal things that have happened where I felt like I needed to retreat and comply and not show up. And then you begin to internalize those things. And let me just be quite honest, that is a form of trauma. If you be, if we can be very transparent, it's a form of trauma.
Yeah.
And so I will ask you this because I think that you and I discussed before that we like Dr. Caroline Leaf,
Mm.
and neurologist. And I listen to her quite often because she goes on live, and she just released their book.
I got it today. It came in the mail.
Did you
Yeah.
did you
I
get
sent it
it?
to there.
Yes, so what is the mental, what is it?
It's called
Mental
Cleaning Up the Mental Mess.
Cleaning up the mental mess. So just on a recent show that she did, she had a guest on, and he talked about his trauma. So what you just said uh took me back to that conversation. And there's so many levels of trauma. There's sexual trauma. There's trauma like Johnna just expressed that we may have experienced in our younger ages, right? So out of that trauma, then we begin to blame ourselves. There's this form of blame that we place on ourselves. Well, maybe if I did this or, did that, the outcome would have been differently. And then from blame, we move to being ashamed that, oh my gosh, why am I like this? Why did it happen? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. And thank you for addressing that. Like, I think what I know is true for me is that I used to think that trauma was not what I had experienced in that sense, because I wasn't physically abused. I wasn't like mentally abused in the fact that anyone was ever like, mean to me. But at the same
Mhm.
time, there were things that I didn't like, needs that weren't met, right? Like whenever you
Yeah.
look at like your hierarchy of needs, and that's not anyone's fault. I think that we are all doing the best that we can. At least I like to hope that we're all doing the best that we can,
Mhm.
in our own lives, like based on the information that we have. And sometimes that's not what the other person needs. And unless you're aware of that, then you're just going to accept what is happening at face value. And so, in terms of what you were saying about, yeah, you're exactly right. Because if this is something that we aren't present to, that like this is like what's considered trauma, we very much think that it's like our fault, because like who else's fault is it, right? Like no one else is around, like I'm the common denominator, it's got to be me. And
Yeah.
there's a difference between what you were saying, like feeling guilty about something, like, oh, like I did something, like I shouldn't have said that, like I was a bitch when I made that comment, or
Mhm.
like I was late, whatever. There's a difference between like I did this thing, or I am, a bad person for doing these things. I am a bad person for not taking control of
Mhm.
my life. And so whenever
Mhm.
we reach that point that you brought up, like, shame, it is something that can be very detrimental, because that's what we're focusing on. And going back to, talking about our internal narratives, that's the script that's playing in our heads. And so
Yes.
if I'm just thinking that like I'm a bad person, like I can't do this, like that's going to point out more things, because what they say, like attracts like it's true. And so I'm going to be more aware, because that's what I'm going to be focused on. And as humans on a biological level, I talk about this a lot, so you'll hear me say like biologically, um,
Mm-hmm.
that's our negativity bias. Again, it is there and to ensure that we are, going to live to see another day. And so we're already naturally present to things that are going to be potential threats to us. And
Mm-hmm.
if you compound that with the fact that, like, well, I'm just telling myself these things as well, every day, day in and day out, because you're the one that talks to yourself the most. No matter how many times you call your best friend, like,
Yeah.
you're the only one that's like there whenever you go to the bathroom, when you go to sleep, when you wake up. And so, yeah, if you aren't aware of these things, if no one, and this is like, again, like, part of like my mission in these terms, and like why I wanted to do this, is because, like, if you don't know, then you just think it's you, and like you're stuck in this like hamster wheel where you're just like going through the motions and
Yep.
accept what is happening as like, well, that's just life.
Yeah. So how do you think that we can dispel the negative things that are, replaying in our mind from when we were younger up until now in our adult lives, and begin to, love ourselves again, and have a love relationship with ourselves instead of replaying all the negative and beating ourselves up? What are the tools? What can we do to foster that love relationship with our own damn selves?
That is a great question. So, first step, like I said earlier, is my first step for anything, awareness. And then once you know like where you are, considering where you want to be and what's getting in the way. And then at that point, it's a matter of like, okay, what's, my priority right now? Like, is this something where I want to, you know, first of all, re rework the internal talk. That's usually where I start with clients because, again, like, you're the one that talks to yourself the most. And from Dr. Caroline Leaf's research and from a bunch of other, like, people who have discovered that, we actually can like create new pathways in our brains. And this is what I was saying, like, our bodies are going to go toward the path of least resistance, because the more we do something, the more it becomes a habit. And that habit in like the physiology of your brain is present as a neural pathway. And so
Yeah.
whenever you are wanting to change anything, it's a matter of creating a new pathway. And the more you go down that new pathway, the like deeper that like groove gets, right? Like the more you like walk down that trail, and the other one kind of like grows up. Like if you're thinking about it like in trails of like a woods,
Hmm.
the other pathway just kind of like goes to the wayside because you're going down this new way now. And there's some ways that, people can do that. Again, awareness and, looking at like what is, and becoming present to the things that we're telling ourselves. If we're starting with, that flipping that script is how I like to phrase it. Then whenever you become aware of it, what are some things that you can tell yourself that are actually what you do want? So to think of an example, if the story that I'm telling myself is, well, I need to shrink myself around other women, right? Like we'll use that example from earlier. Then becoming present whenever it's happening and I recognize that I'm starting to shrink myself, and take a pause and look at like what really is. Like, is this, is this true? Like, do I need to shrink myself? No. Like there's enough for everyone. And so with that being said, what do I want the new narrative to be? Do I want that to be that, you know, I am big and deserving? I am, in a space where people deserve to hear what I have to say. Like people need to hear what I have to say. Like what are the things that you feel you want to resonate with? Like what resonates with you? Like what do you want to exude? Because these different things that we are going to be telling ourselves are very personal and they're very unique. And so it's a matter of, thinking about what those things are so that whenever you recognize like what it is and what comes up, you have your go-tos, right? Like,
Yeah.
when I think this thought, this is what I go to. And there is a
So
concept
do
that's
you
called,
really like have to write it down? Because some people can be in such a negative space and that be their normal way of thinking. And they don't
Mhm,
even know that it's negative.
right.
So, you know, um, do we write these affirmations that like what is it that I need some actual tools that I can do to help me flip the script and change the narrative that runs in my mind?
So it depends on what works for you. A lot of people do like to write them down. Like you can write sticky notes on the mirror. You can make it the background on your phone, which is something a lot of people
Oh, okay.
which a lot of people like to do. Um, I know what works sometimes is just having like a pep talk with yourself, like in the mirror, like looking at yourself and telling yourself like you are a bad bitch, and having a conversation. There's one thing that also I wanted to point out in terms of, like you said, like it's a lot of times really hard, like being in that negative space, and it's hard to break free of. So if you will hold the pose, if you will physically make different like movements, like these power stances, then if you will hold them for about 2 minutes, is what there's a researcher called Amy Cuddy, and so she has like given a talk. There's a TED talk on this, but she's like done research in this capacity and found that if you hold these positions, these power positions, for about 2 minutes, then you will actually start to feel more powerful. And I love this tool. Yeah, I love this tool because you're so right. Like I can want to tell myself things, but if my ass is like laying in bed and I don't feel like it, then like it's not going to matter what the hell I say to myself. I'm still
Yes.
fucking grumpy Gus. But if I get up and if I stand in, so I like to call the pose the Beyonce pose. That's not what's called. But you take up space with your feet. So like you ground your feet, you stand tall and proud, heart open, hands on your hips, and you kind of have your gaze up there and really feel what it feels like to embody that position and take up that space. And what the research has shown is that that will start to shift your perspective and the way that you're feeling, because you're telling your body, like, hey, this is different. It's not you telling your mind, because like I said, your body's going to remember things. Like the body keeps the score. That's a great book, by the way. But your body is going to remember things. And so it's a matter sometimes of physically doing something. And like that's one of the poses. Another pose, and this is a cool one, it's called the Victor. And so you just like same position with your feet, stand nice and tall, and like, yep, bring your hands up into V and just hold it there. And what's really cool about this position is that in the studies, they found that even participants who are blind, whenever they win a race or whenever they do something, they like put their hands over their head. Like it's huge.
Right.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's another one. And then the third one that I'd like to teach people is called, I call it the CEO or the boss bitch. And so in that one, hands behind your head, you like lean back and you take up space. You stretch your feet out, you kick your shoes off on the desk, and you just soak it all in, because how many men do we see in movies doing that?
Yes, absolutely. Listen, in my next meeting, I'm gonna be like,
Yes. Yes. Just take
I
up
love it.
space. And that's
Take up space. I'm gonna go
that's
from
another
here
thing
to here.
too. That's another thing too. Like as women, we literally physically shrink ourselves. If
Yeah.
we are, in public and someone is passing by us, like I'm not saying like, don't like football, like knock them down, but like there's no reason for you to like shrink up and make
Mhm.
yourself so itty
Mhm.
bitty. We do the same
Mhm.
thing if someone sits down next to us on like a bus or, like in any kind of like a public setting, like at a meeting, at like
Yeah.
cafeteria. Like we pick up our stuff, we put our bag on our lap, and we make ourselves physically as small as we can. And
Yes.
that again is like telling your body like, hey, like I'm shrinking myself. And you know people, you may listen to this and think like, well, what's the big difference? Like I'm just being polite. I mean, yeah, that you're being polite, but at the same time, at what cost? At what cost? Because you're telling
Making
yourself,
someone else happy. I,
yes,
let me tell you, as a plus size woman, I know that I do that. I know that I will take my purse and sit it in front of me and, try to do a little turn and, because I don't want to take up space. But fuck it, it is what it is. It's a damn shame,
that
you
is a
know,
damn shame.
it like this,
Yes,
you know.
yes,
And
take it all up.
yeah, definitely own it, because that brings about that confidence. I love that theory. I love that concept. So, what are some practical steps that we can do? Do you think that we move beyond relationship trauma?
Mm, mm. So one of my good friends has a belief, and she thinks that we experience trauma in relationships and we also heal in relationships, right? Like we have different relationships. You have a relationship with literally everything. You have a relationship with, you know, your food. You have a relationship with movement. You have a relationship with your job experience, with people. And there are different dynamics to all of those. And, you know, we get to decide what those are. And so in terms of, you know, moving beyond like different relational trauma, I think it really depends on the type of relationship and like what you want out of it. Because like at the end of the day, I think it's important to, you know, at first make sure that like you're good, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And so how is this relationship serving you is a lot of, you know, a question that I ask a lot of clients, because, you know, we try to get in that mode, especially as women, where we want to fix things. We're like, we're people pleasing. We're like, well, how do I make it better? When maybe that situation isn't for you. And that's not to say that, you know, you have to apologize for that. That's not to say that you have to feel bad about that. That's just to say that sometimes, you know, relationships, like, they're there for a reason. And sometimes we hold on well after they've expired.
Absolutely. 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 So look, I always say after, this last breakup that I had, it was trauma, relationship trauma. But I made a conscious decision to protect my peace at all costs.
Good for you.
Protect peace. So I had to cut off the social media contact, delete phone numbers, cut ties with people that were connected to him so that I could really maintain those boundaries. What are some other things that we should be doing to protect our peace when we experience trauma in our lives?
First of all, kudos to you for recognizing that and for doing it, because that's not easy. It's not
Yeah.
easy to walk away. And so I just want to acknowledge you for that.
No, the motherfucker walked away from me, but and it was no, well, I don't know. I don't know whether he walked away or it just was the time had expired.
Yeah.
And it was definitely like, nah, go on. You want to be out there, being a player,
Mm-hmm.
living, not representing your true authentic self. It's time to go.
Yeah.
So
Well, good for you for
yeah.
cutting it off, because I know that that's not easy. And
Mhm.
aside from that, I think that something um, that really helps like a lot of people to protect their peace is just to know what that looks like. Like, what does your peace look like? Does that look like spending time with your friends? Does that look like spending time with yourself? Like,
Mhm.
what are the things that you would consider like your peace? Is that having, you know, time to like pursue like a degree? Is it having time to like watch television? Like, there are no wrong answers, but it's really getting clear on like what that is, because I think, again, like taking this back to the people pleasing aspect of it and us like, not really knowing, it all goes back to not knowing like who we are. And a lot of times like we don't know what our piece is. I know for me, I was like, well, I think it's going out and like drinking with my friends all the time, and like that's fun. And then, you know, one day I woke up and I was like, I don't, I don't know if this is, I don't know if this is fun for me anymore.
Right, right, right,
Like, not that
right.
there's anything wrong with it, but just saying that I was like, you know, I don't know if this is actually what I enjoy. And so I think that taking time to consider like what that actually looks like, and like, is this something that is really peaceful for me? Because we're just, like I said, going through the motions. And if we never stop to consider it, like 10 years down the road, you might look back and be like, well, I did a lot of this thing that, you know what did that really do for me?
Hmm. Hmm. I absolutely agree. How do you manage the triggers that might spark some of the toxic thoughts or behaviors that resonate with us?
I got so excited. So I wrote a whole workbook on this.
Did
Um,
you?
I did. I did. I
Cool.
did. And this is something that, yeah, I go over a lot with clients, is whenever you are in like a good, like safe space, like, you know, things are fine, like we're able to like talk about it, is identify what it is that works for you in terms of self-soothing. So
Hmm.
is that, you know, like breathing? Is that like, you know, getting really grounded in like your situation, like in terms of like where you are physically, like your space, like what does that look like? And to give you an example, I know that for some people, like you might see like everyone's like, oh, you should like breathing exercises are great. And they are, right? But for someone who, whenever they are, triggered and are starting to, experience a stress response, if you start to hyperventilate and like you go to do a breathing exercise, you're going to pass out. And
Yeah.
so you need to be aware of like what it is that's going to work for you. And that might be, operating in a capacity where, okay, I'm triggered, something's happening. You're going back to that emotional place, like your body's reminding you of like, your alert system's going off, like it's your amygdala, it's your smoke detector basically that's saying like, oh, alert, alert, that thing that like, upset us before, this is similar. And so whenever that happens, knowing like the things that will calm you back down from that, and knowing like what those triggers like might be so that you can either avoid them or like know that like, okay, it's okay to tell my body like, hey, calm down, it's all right. And in terms of like whenever we're operating in that emotional limbic brain portion capacity, sometimes it is something as, you know simple as playing like a game on your phone, like Tetris, that's going to like bring that part of your rational brain back online. Sometimes it's talking about like, oh, this is, my favorite TV show, like what's happening, like let me explain it to you. Something to take your focus and like the awareness back on that rational like thinking part of your brain to bring you back into
Mhm.
it. um, Sometimes like movement is something that will really help a lot of people because like I shared with the power positions, you're physically like you're in control there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times what happens whenever we're triggered is we feel that we're not, like we have the response where we either need to flee, so fight, excuse me, we need to fight, so we need to defend ourselves. We need to flight, so like we need to flee the scene, we need to get away. We fawn, which is like the people pleasing, that's like a newer one that they've like come up with. Or we freeze and we do nothing and we
Uh,
detach and we numb. And so knowing like how you tend to respond is helpful. And then like I said, knowing like what these things are, whether it be like naming objects in the room to really get centered on like where you are physically, whether it be going for a walk, moving your body, dancing. I love dancing, like as a way, like
mhm.
put on your Beyonce like Girls Run the World soundtrack.
Yeah. 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 What were the four things? Flight,
Flight, fight,
fight. Uh,
freeze, so like detaching, going numb, like doing nothing. Yep. And then fawn, like people
oh,
pleasing.
wow.
When you start catering to like the others to like diffuse the situation.
Yeah. So, is there a direct correlation between being physically fit and mentally sound?
So yes, there is. There is a correlation between movement and brain health because I love this. And this is like part of like why the integration of the two is so cool. It's because like as we've spoken about, whenever you move your body, you're telling your brain that something is different. And whenever we are moving our body in a controlled environment, whenever you were doing a workout, like that you're safe, right? Like that like your heart rate's going to go up, that your breathing's going to increase. These things are expected. And if you do that on a regular basis, aside from it, like, giving you endorphins and, increasing like cardiovascular health and like strength and all that, like over time, what it's doing to your brain is you are intentionally eliciting a stress response. So that's going to prime you to be more prepared whenever that happens in a situation where you're not expecting it. You're going to be more apt to have, lower anxiety, and you're going to be more apt to like stay calmer whenever things arise because you're used to that stress response. And so it's not your body going like, oh, heart rate's increasing, breathing's increasing, what do I do, what do I do? It's your body saying like, okay, this is similar, what's happening now, because this isn't like what it normally is, and kind of like assessing it from that stance. Because
Nice.
that's what movement is, that's what fitness is. You are micro tearing your body, like you're putting micro tears on your muscles, like you're stressing your system out intentionally. And what that does is that prepares you, yeah, for whenever it happens in an unknown capacity.
Nice. So, having good sex will do the same thing, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You talked about releasing endorphins and getting the heart rate going. I said, well, this sounds like a damn good sex experience.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
All right.
Yes, and that also, with that, the release afterwards from like an orgasm, that releases all other kinds of like feel good hormones in the brain.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it relieves stress. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
That is
it.
a part of it. Yeah, that is a highly recommended part for brain health.
So work out at least 3 to 5 times a week and have sex at least how many times a week?
I
Good
mean,
sex.
as many as you can get it in.
Okay.
Doctor recommended.
Yes, highly recommended. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, how do we move outside of our comfort zone and overcome this spirit of procrastination?
Woo! I don't know. When you figure it out, let me know. No, I'm just kidding. So, small habits. Small habits. And I know that's not the sexy answer at all. But a lot of times, I think what holds us back and what I've seen as holding people back is we don't feel we have enough information to start. It's like, oh, well, I missed a meal. Like I ate a cheeseburger for lunch and I was supposed to be eating healthy. So like I'll just start again tomorrow. But if you would just start with the next meal, then like you've already done it. Like you've already started. And looking at it from this angle, it's very much something where we think it's like an all or none mentality. And so what was really true, especially from what we spoke about with neural pathways and our bodies just going to the habits, is that if you try to make too many changes at once, if you're like, all right, today's the day, I'm waking up at 5 a.m., I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to eat every meal, that's a lot. That's a
Mhm.
lot that's a lot of new like stuff to put on your plate. And
Yeah.
so it's more about like, all right, I usually wake up at 8, let me wake up at 7:30.
Mhm.
Like I want to work out, let me go for a walk. And starting to build the foundation for these new habits is what will actually help out in the long run. So procrastination is usually something that, you know, again, served us in the past. We're
Yeah.
not doing anything because that avoidance protected us from being uncomfortable mentally, physically, emotionally. Like we're doing it for a reason. And so it's a matter of like being present to that. Like, okay, it's not that I'm just always late. It's not that this is just how I am. I've
Mhm.
tried that. I've tried to tell myself that. And then I'm like, no, Johnna.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a matter of looking at what is it that you're procrastinating on, and okay, what do you need to do? One thing that, so tangible steps would be to set an alarm. Like you're not going to do the full project, maybe whatever it is you need to do. Like let's say it's like cleaning the house. So like instead of thinking like, all right, let me spend 4 hours cleaning the whole house, let me spend an hour cleaning one room. Like no distractions, put on music,
Yeah.
set a timer, and at the end of that hour you're done. You don't get to do more. Like,
Mhm.
and starting to build onto it like that way, like whatever the task is that you're procrastinating, give yourself time limits, and like don't let yourself go over that time, because that's going to make you want to do more with the time you've got. Because if you're
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I've got all day, then you're going to take all day. But if you're like, I've
Mhm.
only got this hour to do the thing,
And you're
I've got
gonna hone in.
yeah in like 50 minutes, maybe
Yeah.
45.
Yeah. That's nice. That's nice. So, I think what I'm hearing is that if you continue to do that, you become disciplined. And that's a hard thing to do. How do we get in this routine where we have this discipline to say, this is what we're going to do? And how do we maintain it? Because so many of us will be like, that's a damn shame. I don't feel like it today. I just want to lay in Netflix and chill. And so, how do we maintain that discipline?
So allow space for the Netflix and chill. If you know that that's something that you typically do, then make sure that you are putting that in part of this new like discipline routine, so that you know that like you have that space. And
Yeah.
in terms of keeping up the momentum, like I said, just start small. It's not like I'm gonna run a marathon every day like for 5 days. It's okay, so I'm going to spend like 30 minutes going for a walk, or like whatever may be true for you. And this is something that, again, like that all or none, it's like, well, I've got to do all the stuff. But if you really just are even in the habit of like, let's say I do Netflix and chill like all the time, or like for however many hours a night, What would that look like if you cut that down to a limited time space with that as well? Like, what are the things that you can do to incorporate the things that you want to do, but it's still allow time and space for the things that you're used to doing. So it's not so much of a shock that it's a complete, like, 180 or 360. It's more just, we're tweaking it a little bit. Like, we're making like a 45-degree tweak. Like,
Yeah.
we're bringing
Nice.
something new in. And what you'll find is that over time, it's like, that like 30-minute walk, let's do 45 minutes today. Let's do an hour
Mhm.
tomorrow. You'll start
Mhm.
to see like what it is that you actually enjoy doing and what it is that leaves you at the end of the day feeling more productive. And your reward center will be like, you know what? We did really used to like Netflix and chill, and that's fun sometimes, but like I like to do this other thing and I feel better afterwards. And so you'll
Yeah.
start to like have the contrast, and that will allow you to expand into disciplining yourself in that way, and really doing what it is that is important to you. Because a lot of times too, and I want to point this out, we see
Yeah.
others and we're like, that worked for them, like that's what I need to do. Not necessarily. Like, it's important to try it out, like, of course, and give it a few tries. Don't just like try it once unless you absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
Like, give it a few tries, like see how it feels. It might be for you, it might not. And because if you are doing something that you don't want to do, it doesn't matter how much discipline you have, like, you're you're not going to want to do it. And
Absolutely.
so that is like something too that I wanted to point out. But yeah, in terms of discipline, small steps over like a larger, like, period of time, and allowing yourself the space and the permission, because a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to watch Netflix. We're telling
Yeah.
ourselves there's that guilt thing. Oh, I should be doing
Mhm.
this. I should be doing that. Give yourself the permission to watch Netflix for whatever time a day, like, works for you, and start to also bring in whatever it is that you want to be more disciplined about.
Absolutely. I like, setting the timer, that suggestion that you've given us, because so often do I try to cram everything in, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do. But if I carve out the time and maximize and dedicate that time to it, then I can get and knock things off the list, get things done, knock them off the list. So that creates that level of discipline, the level of accountability within myself. So I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love it.
And you
Before
know what? Oh, I was going to say one last thing.
that,
You know what that's going to do whenever you start to do that? You're going to tell yourself, you know what? I can do this. Like, I am doing this. It's going to
yeah,
reaffirm that like you can do it, and it's going to increase your confidence.
yeah, yeah. Let's get into this scenario. Imagine that this best relationship, the best relationship you have ever had, right? And you all have these soul ties. It's a soul tie relationship. It was mind blowing when you were in it, right? You love them, but well, her, shit, I don't know what you into. You love them, but more importantly, your souls were connected to this person, right? And things didn't work out for one reason or another. About a year later, you run into them at the gym. Yeah. What do you do? And what are your initial thoughts and feelings? How do we process that?
Mm. Okay, I'm going to put myself in like a previous relationship, like back in the day. So if I were to have seen him at the gym, I think my initial thoughts, I would have definitely experienced a stress response. Like, my heart would have started pounding, like my breathing, I would have been like, and I'm a freeze. Like, I would very much be like, like I would freeze. And so I think at that point I would start, let me say, so old me would just start like running the script in my head, like, oh my God, like he's here, like why is he here? Like, where did he come from? Like, I would start to get really anxious.
Mhm.
Current me, if this were to happen to current me, I would very much consider, okay, this is happening. I would probably honestly still have the freeze response, because that's like I shared like at the beginning, like how I'm used to coping to this with this kind of thing. And I would be aware of it at this point. And so I would start to ask myself, what's the outcome I want? Like, what do I want? What is going to serve me? Is that going to be waving at him and like not paying him any mind the rest of the time? Is that going to be going up and like, oh, hey, how are you? Like, let's catch up. Or is that going to be, me just like running out the back? Like, what is going to serve me? Because like you said, a lot of times, like, sometimes you just have to, or a lot of times you have to cut people off to protect your peace. And so just considering like what it is that's going to serve me the most, like in the long run. And so depending on what I felt, to give you a concrete answer, I think I would probably make small talk and just, how's it going? How you been? All right, well, take care. Like, nice to see you, kind of thing. Because it might still be a year. It would still hurt. It would still hurt after a year.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. I think that if I was faced with that.
Yeah, I was like, what would you do? I don't know. Oh my God.
Yeah. First, I would be like, that's a damn shame. Like, why is he here? Oh my gosh. But I think that I would collect myself. And I think at that point, I'd be like, hey, how you doing? Oh, it's good seeing you. Hope everybody's well when you're in, take care. And just kind of keep it small talk, very brief. And, we don't even have, even if, I've had encounters where they're like, well, let me call you. Let's go out. And I'm like, hell no. Hell no. I think that I do a very good job at cutting people off. And that is probably, so when I asked you about the four things, I was like, I don't know. I try to really block out in my mind that I ever had this encounter with them, that I ever had any soul ties. It's like, I do a very good job at, out of sight, out of mind, they don't exist to me. And that is KiKi's coping mechanism. It's not the healthiest way because there might be incidents where I see this guy or, see this person who wronged me or, that I was connected to once. Because let's be clear, there are female, platonic relationships that we have that don't always work out. But, I don't know.
Well, I think you're exactly right. Like the detachment. So yeah, again, kudos to your awareness. But I mean, that serves us a lot of times because sometimes if it is still in our presence, then we can't do the things that we need to in order to like heal ourselves and process it. And so it is a matter of stepping away. And that is just one of the steps in the process of, like looking into this. And I feel you so much. Like I am very good at like cutting people off as well. And again, that wasn't something that I ever thought was, anything other than normal until the one that I thought back to that in this scenario was like, it's weird that you cut people off so easily. And I was like, why is it weird? I think it's fine. And then I got to thinking about it like years later and I'm like, to your point, I'm like, I don't know if that is the healthiest thing because I'm not really dealing with it. I am just like pushing it away and like shoving it down and not looking at it. And so it took that realization before I ever actually did look at it and think, okay, what about this is so painful? Like what actually happened? And like started to look into that. You know what I would do afterwards though? As soon as I got out of the gym, I'd be calling my best friend like, girl,
This is a damn shame I ran into.
Damn shame. I'm like, listen to this shit.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So I have a fun game that we're about to play. It's called This or That.
Woo!
And so I'm going to name two things and you can pick either one. And if you choose not to answer, then you can just sip your cocktail.
I'm so excited. Okay.
I'll tell you, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope the damn shamers really thoroughly enjoyed it as well, because you've given us some things that we can actually consider that are helpful, that we can incorporate into our daily lives to move into this space of truly loving and loving ourselves, and really healing from things that we experienced in the past. So this or that, I'll go easy first. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Huh? ATV or jet ski?
Oh, jet ski.
Huh? Burpees or suicides?
Oh, neither. Let's go with burpees.
Burpees, okay. Skiing in the Aspens or sunbathing in Antigua?
Sunbathing. I don't even care where it's at. I hate
Where is that? Happily poor or rich and miserable?
Happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might not have a lot, but the happiness, it supersedes all.
Yeah, I can say that because I've been miserable.
Ah,
So
yeah. So who's a better listener, your life coach, a man or a woman?
Oh, that so depends. It so depends.
Mm.
Like, I've had some really great male life coaches. But yeah, I guess I would say I've had more female ones. And I just learned this sidebar. Whenever a woman is pregnant, like her brain physiology changes and the center for communication, like emotion, like develops more to like prime her body to like, I mean, I guess that like what they think is to prime her body to be able to respond to the needs of the child more. How cool is that?
That is very cool.
So I would say women, have the bandwidth and like the equipment. Like we got the equipment to be more empathetic and understanding. But I think it depends on like, where the person is at in their life.
Okay. Which is more sexy, a woman's ass or her titties?
I like the ass.
Yeah. Which is more sex? Well, not ask that. Penetration or masturbation?
No, you know what I like? Can I say this?
Yeah, totally.
I like the clit vibrators.
Love it. Yes. Clitoral stimulation is like golden. Whoever fucking invented that little bullet thing, I love them.
The lipstick one?
Yes. I love
I've seen those. I don't have those. I have the one, it's like the sucker one. It's called the Satisfier.
Ah, okay.
That one is good. I also got
Not tried that.
the Lilo, the expensive one, and I'm like, I don't know about this, but
Yeah.
the other one is good.
It's good.
5 stars.
So we're going masturbation
Yes.
over penetration. Okay. Which orgasm is better, vaginal or anal?
Fun fact, I've never had anal.
Ah, okay. So we're going with vaginal. Fast, hard sex or slow, sensual sex?
Fast on Friday, slow on Sunday.
Ah! I love it. 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 Let me tell you, this has been a true pleasure. I think that you have given me and the Damn Shame community some valuable nuggets that we can carry on. So each and every week, right? I like to spotlight Black-owned businesses, and you have provided two. Let's talk about it. To Be Yoga. I saw you live with this lady. She had a lot of good nuggets to offer up as well. I said, "Oh, I'm running to get my yoga blocks."
Yes, yes. So that's Ashley. I love her. She is local in North Carolina, and so To Be. I don't know if you heard this part, but in the beginning of the podcast, she said that stands for bad bitch. Like she wanted to name her brand like Bad Bitch Yoga, but she was like, so she made it 2B, like the letter or the number 2, the letter B.
I
And
love it.
she saw a need and she created it. So she said that she found yoga and she would go and she's like, I'm the only Black woman and like I'm listening to like rap and I don't look like these people. And like
Yeah.
the whole like namaste, like it has to be like very proper, like that's not what yoga meant to her. And so she teaches hip hop yoga. She also teaches HIIT yoga, which is kind of like high intensity, like planks and like different like strength kind of
Mm.
movements as well with it. Um, and she does that virtually and also locally for anyone who is in the area. And she also works with clients. She's doing her Body Love Boot Camp, and they are enrolling, and it starts on Monday. And she's going to be providing movement, yoga, and nutrition insight with like a Facebook
Oh,
group.
wow.
And they're doing a Busted Open challenge this month, and so she's teaching everyone progressions to get to a split.
I absolutely love it. Yeah. When she said, "Oh, I'm going to do it, offer it virtually," I was like, "Wow, that's excellent. I'm going to get my yoga block." So, what's her website? I have www.2byoga.net, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay. And the other business.
that's Steven, and I love him. I met him through the life coaching certification, and so I had already taken it like years ago, but I'm taking it again, and because to get certified, like ICF certified, like you have to retake it anyway. So he is in my cohort this time, and he is a genius. He has a background in psychology and neuroscience, and so he's very like intellectual in terms of like the brain and the body and his. And I love this because we actually just so happen to talk about it today because he's also a personal trainer, and he works as like a strength and conditioning coach at a university in Philadelphia. And
Ooh.
so he today we were talking and he was saying that like his like what he wants to help the woman and like the man and like the people who are refinding themselves, who are like from their 30s, like late like mid to late 30s to like into their 40s and like 50s, that are like empty nesters and that are kind of wondering like, well, what's next. And so he really wants to help them like recognize that like it's about them and work on what their relationship with like food looks like, work on what their relationship with their bodies look like, and also provide like mental like health coaching in that capacity, because as we've spoken about today, it's about so much more than the food that's
Mhm.
going in your mouth and like the way that you're moving your body. And so
Yeah.
that is Steven and I do a regular Clubhouse talk with our friend Josh on
Okay.
Wednesdays at noon, where we talk about health and wellness. And so that's every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And last week we spoke about what is wellness and how it's individualistic. And this week we're going to be talking about gym preparedness and like what it looks like to like what's your routine for the gym, how do you get mentally ready, like what do you say to
Mhm.
yourself whenever you're on that like last rep. And so that's what we're going to be talking about this week.
That's so dope. Let me tell you, Clubhouse is dope. Damn Shame Podcast is now on Clubhouse.
Woo!
You can look for us there. Are you soul searching squats on?
I got in early. I'm just Johnna at JOHNNA.
Okay, just Johnna on Clubhouse. Okay. All right, so I'll look for you or DM me when you all go. And so I love it. Clubhouse is for iPhone users only. Hopefully, they'll get to the Android users as well. But it's so dope. You get to hear a lot of perspectives. It's audio only. So I love Clubhouse.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like the conversations, they feel really organic because you don't know what the people who are like in the audience, like you don't know what they're going to say and you can bring them on stage. Yeah, they were a lot of fun. This last Wednesday was our first one. And so we have like a whole series like planned out for the week or the month of March.
Absolutely. So listen, Damn Shame Podcast has an ebook. It's called Damn Shame Podcast on the Rocks. You can download it, our ebook, you by going to Amazon.com. Make sure that you download the free Kindle app, and you can see all of our delicious contemporary recipes that we have featured on past podcast shows. Also, Johnna has ordered some Damn Shame merchandise.
Yes, she
So
did.
make sure that you click the link in our bio on our page to get the link to our Damn Shame podcast merchandise. We love our Damn Shame community. I love how they have supported us. So, look, Damn Shame Podcast always gives an award, a Damn Shame Award of the week. And for me, it is that one who lays in the bed and procrastinates. That would be me sometimes. I procrastinate. I'm like, I know I should be doing 1,000 things, but so I am going to use these tools that Johnna has provided us to change the narrative, to change everything that I had been doing, to flip the script.
Flip the
That's what
script.
flip the script. Johnna, it has been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for imparting the wisdom, the details, all of that. Thank you
Thank you
so.
so much for having me.
Yes. So damn Seamus, I tell you every week, if you can't be good, be great. Otherwise, it's a damn shame. Thank y'all for listening. We are here every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Thumbs up if you like what you heard tonight. Let us know. Get into those comments. Thank you, damn shamers. We love y'all for listening. Out.